Hey, what is going on, everybody? It is Friday, so it's another episode of Millennial with Billy and Mel. What is going on, guys? It has been like 2 weeks, right? It's been at least 2 weeks since we've.
It seems like a year.
Yes, it's been way too long, right, to say the least.
Yes.
But like I said, guys, it's another episode of Millennial. We're here, we're back, we're ready to yell about something that's really I feel is like a super interesting topic. Mel actually brought this up just because this has happened in the last couple of days. And so it's all today. What we're going to be talking about is making big decisions, right? And life is full of those, right? Whether you're going to college, whether you're going to get married, right? All these are huge decisions that we make in our lives. And sometimes when we make those decisions, we don't really know the weight of those decisions and those outcomes until way down the road. But before we get into all that, guys, if you're jumping on with us, please make sure you comment who you are, where you're coming in from. We'd love to give you a shout out. We'd love to pop up your comment. Let the millennial crew let them know what you're thinking. But like I said, before we get into all that, Mel, what is going on? It has been 2 weeks since we've had this chat. So how are you doing?
Good. I'm good. I'm going. I didn't sleep very well last night, so I've been up since 3 o'clock. So I'm gonna crash here. I'm probably delirious. But I have missed you. I have missed our podcast and Millennial yelling, and everybody probably was wondering what we were doing. I had a big charity event that I spoke about, the LLS brunch that I was hosting in honor of my sister for my friend Trish running for Woman of the Year. Today is the last day of her campaign. So if you are listening and you would like to donate on my Facebook page, I will post onto the Millennial page as well. Any, $10 obviously helps and goes to a great cause for research for cancer. So that was whirlwind the last 2 weeks. Absolutely. I'm glad that's over. I think there's a lot of things that here I'm going to talk about that in the last 2 weeks, I've made some very, very big decisions on things that I'm excited to talk about, because I think that there's other people that are probably going through things that they need to clear space. We always say we can't add things if we don't remove things. So I think that
Very
good.
True.
What about you? What have you been up to?
I mean, it's been crazy since, I've been to the beach a couple of times. It's, not having to wear a mask anymore because I'm fully vaccinated. Right. So that's very nice. Being a part of that, seeing just the world kind of open back up is really exciting, right? Because we were living in a world that was just weird, right? It was very distant, with social distancing and all that stuff. So it was just a weird time. And so it's, I remember, because we were going to talk about this, right? We were going to talk about the vaccinations and stuff like that. And it is weird, right? I tend to be more of a rule follower. So I wore masks and stuff like that. I got my vaccine and whatnot, and to each his own, right? To each his own. But it is weird, like walking into the store for the first time and like saying like, do we need to wear a mask? Should we wear a mask?
I know.
Like, it's kind of a weird feeling being a part of that and just seeing people like actually enjoy life. But that's been crazy, right? And so with that, I feel like I've gotten more busy, right? With everything that's going on, especially in my career. I just feel like things are ramping up even more than they were. And so it's definitely that, the more business I get, and I know you run into this, right? Some of the decisions that we have to make, right? And some of the things that we have to do in order to make our business go further. So that's what I want to talk about. Definitely, like, not only from a personal standpoint, from a business standpoint. I think those are big decisions that we have to make. And that all the big decisions, guys, that we have made, that me and Mel have made, have led us to this podcast. So just think about that, right, for perspective.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that they were hard decisions. I mean, we talked about that, even me asking for help, and I mean, those are, there's definitely small decisions, there's big decisions, there's hard, very hard decisions. But I know that with some of the things that I'm doing with the workshops and the business, with the Grant Cardone, a lot of it is about taking action and making decisions fast. And I've learned a lot about making quick decisions in just life and in selling and in business. If you can't make it really quickly, usually you're stalling or there's an excuse or that. So we talked about that in a different podcast, but I've been really looking at the outcomes of the decisions and things that are going to benefit me, and obviously just make things just less stressful, happier, easier. And there's I think there's a lot of factors that weigh in making those decisions too.
Oh, totally. I mean, and I think as we get older, right, it's logic to think that we make better decisions, right, even in those big times. But there's so much that goes into making good decisions. It's not just about the type of person you are, but it's about the information that you gather. It's about the mindset that you have behind that decision. And not every decision that we're going to make is the choice between good and bad, right? Sometimes it's bad,
right? Or bad and just a little less bad.
yeah, to say the least. And so what are some of the big decisions that you've made that have changed your life, I guess, if that's a good place to start?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like historically, when I was working part-time, I had my business part-time, I was working part-time. I transitioned to working full-time, doing my business part-time, and then I kind of went part-time. And it was in 2014, I believe, is when I went full-time with my business. And that was probably one of the, most major decisions that I made professionally, was to take that leap and jump into it. Now I was engaged, or at least dating my ex-husband at the time. So I had a little bit of that safety net or security. And I was actually, might have still even been living at home, I forget, but I that was a huge decision for me to take that leap, and financially and with my business. And I had to do it. You just have to kind of do it quickly. Lately, I had a similar situation. I had, after my divorce, gotten into debt and was spending money in credit cards, and I wasn't working as much, and I just was lost. And I've talked a lot about that, and I needed extra income, and I ended up getting a job that I was on the payroll for, doing what I do for a lot of my own clients and for my own business. And I did a really great job. I think it really helped me to build a lot of the client base now that I have, and I was able to work on that portfolio and then get clients for my business because of it. But recently I was given a new position description and pay, and I wasn't asked, nor it wasn't discussed. And I get insurance through them. It's guaranteed money. I took our 401k money away. I took savings, and it was a job. Obviously, it was a big thing as I was doing my business still, kind of almost 2 full-time jobs, because I needed that extra income. And unfortunately, right now, the new job description doesn't fit what I signed up for. And I ended up just today saying that I am no longer I'm not accepting the new position that they are forcing me, telling me, giving me, which it's kind of an interesting situation, but it wasn't for me, and it was very stressful, and it was just things that I didn't agree with, and I didn't want to do, and I didn't sign up for, and I'm not good at, or all those things. And I made the decision today, actually, to say I'm not accepting it, and I'm giving the 2 weeks. So I'm back basically full time, with my business. Financially, I'm going to be okay, and I have to end up getting health insurance again. And it's the next couple of weeks are going to be rough, but I know it was a decision that I had to do for myself, and move forward with the things that I'm doing with my designers back, my brother's interning, and getting this online store finally up in the next week or two. And then by the end of the summer, we should be rocking. So
that's awesome. I mean, and the overall theme I heard like through that story, and I think it's a lot when it comes to like decisions, especially like in business, especially like when people are negotiating for like salaries and stuff like that. I think, and it would be an interesting topic to talk about from the standpoint of, knowing your value, right? Knowing what you bring to the table. And I wonder if Mel from 5 years ago would have been able to make that decision. You know, you think about it like that. Like,
No.
you're like, do you think you would have been strong enough to make that decision?
No. And honestly, I absolutely would not have, because of the things that I've gone through since then. I've known that I can figure it out, and I can be resourceful, and I can quickly get other income and do other things. And right now I've built my business back up to where, again, like, I am okay. But I obviously want to supplement that with what the website and the online store is going to do. But what I figured out too, and this is interesting about this whole conversation, is that it's forcing me to finish this online store because I have no choice. So right now I'm kind of up against a wall. And the decision that I made to do it was also because I haven't put 100% into the store. Right now I'm going to have to, because that's where obviously that, I have to double, triple, the income coming in there. And now that decision that I made is actually, is going to motivate me to do something that I've been not doing for many years. So,
yeah, it's crazy. Like the decision, even not making a decision, right? Not choosing between both is still making a decision. People like Grant Cardone says this all the time. I watched a video and I thought about you the other day when he said it. He was talking about like people being interested and not interested in your product. Well, he would say, well, being not interested is still a form of being interested. Like,
right. It's an answer. Yeah.
It's still an answer. And so, by you not taking, making a decision of like, well, I really want to build this store. I really want to do this stuff. Right. You were holding yourself back, right. Because you're like, well, I always have this. Right. And the same thing happened to me. It was crazy when I first started in this career in the financial services field. I was doing it part-time and I was still working somewhere else, and I wasn't happy. But I was like, well, I just need to build my book of business, right? To a certain point. And I never put a number on that certain point. I was just like, well, I'll know, right? Like I'll have a feeling that comes over me and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to quit. Right. And I'm going to do this full time. And it's crazy. Sometimes life will force decisions upon you, right? You're not always just given that, like you come, like, I feel like life more so forces the decision upon you rather than you come to a crossroad and you get to think about it. Right. And you're like, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Right. For me, like, I was like, all right, I need a sign. What do I need to do with my life? Like, am I doing this or am I doing this thing? And so it was crazy because I ended up getting laid off from the job I was at. Right. And I was sitting there and, I've only been fired, laid off like once before. And I don't know if you've ever been fired or laid off. It is a shitty feeling, right? A lot of people experienced that here in, last year, right? And it's not a great feeling in the world. But I had that sense of feeling like I failed, right? Like I'm being fired, like they don't want me. Right. But then an overall sense of calm came over me because I was like, this is the answer I was looking for. Like life is saying, you're ready, even though you might not think you're quite ready. Like we know you're ready. And the best way to do it is to take that leap, take that jump.
And maybe you wouldn't have done it for another, how long, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think honestly, I needed to do this as well. I needed to focus on my business and the online store. And I wasn't doing it technically on my own. I just wasn't doing it enough and fast enough. But I think this kind of was presented in a way that, I'll be honest, it was so bad that I think they just wanted me gone. But anyway, I don't know. I can't even somewhat fathom it. But whether that's true or it was my time, because it was something that I needed to do anyway. And I just think that that you're right. Like it was almost handed to me anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
it's crazy how different personalities too of like go about making decisions, right? Like I feel like us being yellows, like we're gonna be all over the place, right?
Yeah.
But whereas like a red, or and if you guys don't know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about, you have to go back to
Color
one of our
code.
other our color code podcasts that we did where we talked about the different personalities. And if yellow's more life of the party, they want to everything's fine. Or red is your dictator, right? You're direct to the point type
Right.
of person, and so and then you think of like somebody that's a blue that's really analytical, right? I couldn't even imagine like being in their head. It's like they got to weigh every
Right.
decision
And they
out.
worry. Yep. And yeah.
And so it's interesting how that plays into a factor. Is like for me, when you think, when your mind races like ours does, like you think of every possibility, right? And sometimes like you make up stuff like you think like is going to happen, but right, it's so far fetched that it doesn't end up happening. And so it's interesting how our personalities play into the decision making process that we make.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of outside factors that we allow in that we shouldn't, or sometimes they need to be. Obviously, if it's things with families or relationships or finances or jobs, but yeah, I think that there's some things that we're not always clear-headed when we're making decisions on, and the more clear you are, the easier and or maybe faster that you'll make them. But I also think that there's been somewhat decisions that have been, I wasn't focused on certain things. So, but I think now when I'm making a lot of the decisions that I'm doing, and it's honestly personally, professionally, socially, with friends, with my time, that I'm really looking at what is true to myself. Is it something that aligns with my goals and my vision and my who I am, and or not? And a lot of things that have become very stressful, there's a reason that things, you have to make certain decisions to cut things out of your life, obviously, to be able to get to where you want to be and make things make things better.
Yeah, I mean, something you were just kind of hinting on, and it's like making decisions. I think about the decisions I make now are completely different than when I was like 20, 25,
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like the decisions that you made that you thought were huge back then are so minute now. But they had led, it's crazy that even though you made those decisions and you probably didn't base it off of a lot of information, right? I feel like when we're younger, you base a lot of your big decisions off your feelings, right? Your heart, how your heart feels.
Oh,
but
yeah.
when you get a little bit older, right, and you have a little bit more experience behind things, you're going to base it off a lot more of head knowledge. And I think it really comes down
An
to, for me, yeah. And then for me, it really comes down to trying to use both in the decision-making process, right? Like understanding logically what those, it's like playing chess or checkers. Like, all right, if I make this move, what could the opponent do? And then like, what are my next moves after this, right? Like, I think when you get older, you get a little bit more of that experience.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think things become a little bit easier, and they become a little bit less where you're afraid a little. Like, I know we said that some of the things that decisions that you make are based on certain things or fear or something. And I think that also, I got fired. I was like 16 years old. I was getting discounts at FYE in the mall and got caught. So I got fired, But I think that when the flip side, when it was really bad.
For those that don't know what that is, that was a CD store. They sold CDs.
Oh my God. Yeah, we used to, yeah. And I gave discounts on them. But yeah, I think after that, and in other situations where you have to give your 2 weeks, you have to, quit. It's very scary sometimes, and it's hard, and you don't want to hurt people's feelings, and you think that people are going to hate you, and you're not sure what's going to happen, even if you have another job, like even if you have things lined up. Like for me right now, I still have my business, but that's a big chunk of, $45,000. That's a lot of money, even that I was, that was there, and the health benefits and things that I'm going to have to obviously, figure out, but I know that I'll be okay. But I think, and I honestly didn't have any fear. I think once you set your mind to it, whether it's something that you're going to leave a job or a relationship or things that, sometimes it's hard, but when you make that decision internally, it's a little bit easier, I think. But as I've gotten older, there's not a lot of that fear anymore inside. I would remember I would feel really like inside my gut and I would have butterflies, like just hard to have those conversations when you're, trying to move on from things. But I think that once you do it and you then you feel so much better. It's like, what do we say? The greatest things in life are on the other side of your fear. Once you do something and make that decision, you're like, oh, that wasn't hard at all. Or I feel so much better. A weight has been lifted for doing it. So, I think that's something that's different for me too, as I've gotten older, and it's probably confidence and experience, and it's not going to be the end of the world. And there, everything will be okay. They'll be okay. I'll be okay. And I think it's making the decisions that are going to best suit for you. Another big decision that I made recently was to leave my LaTip group. It was a networking group that I was in for 7 years, and we met every single week. During COVID, it was virtual, but I just felt I outgrew it a little bit, and I wasn't getting as much business from it for the time that I was putting in. And I really, again, it was one thing that I needed to clear mental and physical time to be able to put something else in there, even if it was just an hour or two. But when we were meeting in person, it was almost a 3-hour thing, and I couldn't schedule things before. I couldn't schedule things after. And it's going to go back to meeting in person very soon. And I just decided I need to start removing those things. And that was huge. I mean, it was like a family, and it was 7 year, every week.
Yeah,
absolutely. But again, the investment of money and time, for me, I don't have a lot of the time, and I need to make decisions, and they're hard, but it's to be able to stick to focusing finally, I'm really hyper focused on getting the online store done. And that was a really hard decision. I felt bad. I think people get upset or just, it wasn't a breakup, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, whenever you do something for a long time, right, and it's consistent and you get used to it and you build it into your schedule, right, it feels like something's missing, like when that thing goes, right? And so, I think I differ a little bit from you from the fear aspect of things. I think fear in making decisions can be relatively a good thing. Maybe not fear is the right word, maybe like the butterflies, right? Like, because it makes for me, when I'm fearful or have that anxiety is not the right word either, but whenever I had that uneasiness, right, about making a decision, like it really forces me to focus on those details and say, okay, all right, if I make this decision, right, and Megan is completely opposite of me, right? Like when it comes to the decision-making process, she can boom, like she makes a decision, that's it, right? That's what we're doing. But me, I'm a little bit more calculated. And I think that, going to like a relationship standpoint, when you make big decisions, when you're single, right, you can just make the decision, right? You're the end all be all. But when you're making a decision as a couple, right, it's like now you're just, now your decision's impacting other people, right? It's not just like, okay, like for you to, cancel your LaTip, right? Yeah, you impacted some people that, they're going to miss you and stuff like that. But like when you're making decisions as a couple, or even like you said with kids, like decisions you make to move, to take a different job, to, do something, that's going to impact the family, that's a whole nother level, right? That's a whole nother level of thinking, anxiety, fear, because you want to like, for me, like when you're making decisions for yourself, it's easy to pivot, right? It's easy to move in a different direction. But when you're, it's like steering an ocean liner, like a big cruise ship, versus like steering a little rowboat, right? It's easy to move the rowboat. It's not easy to move the ocean liner back into the position that you need it to. So it's that's another whole level of this that we haven't even touched on yet.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of pressure in that. I mean, I think being in relationships and being married, I can definitely relate to making decisions like that, and it affects everybody. And sometimes you don't even think about it and you don't consider it. And then there's times where you have to discuss it, and your partner is part of the decision-making process and you're doing it together. And then, I mean, I absolutely, I think that for me right now, it's certainly a lot easier because it's just me. I think it's, I've been there, but obviously, not. And I think even making the decision to get divorced, I mean, that was really hard, and that took a lot of courage and decision and bravery, because I think, at the time I wasn't really married that long, but I knew it wasn't right for me and us, and that was very, 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 very hard. And there was a lot of emotions and embarrassment and shame and fear and things that were into that. But that decision was, obviously life changing. And what I do, I don't know if I've shared this, but what I did then and what I do now in major decisions is I thought one day I was going to blink and I was going to be 90, and I was going to look back and say, did I live a fulfilling life? And was I fulfilled? Or did I regret things? And at the time I thought I would have not felt fulfilled. And I said, if that's how I feel, which I did, and it's okay. It's okay. And, we were okay, but I wasn't, I knew that I wouldn't be fulfilled. And that's how I also make decisions now in certain aspects. And when there's things that are happening and, there's little things that you notice, or red flags, or little things that annoy you. And it's not just in relationships, but in anything, I kind of do that thing where I blink and I say, am I going to look back and feel that I made a good decision? And if I'm going to say no, then I know what to do. If I'm super confident and then I go. But if I have any doubts, or if I use that, and that's helped me a little bit, because I was going to ask you too, what do you think? How about making hard decisions? Some people write pros and cons down. That's something when I've been in a really bad spot, a couple people have said to me, write down pros, write down cons, write down the good stuff, write down the bad. And, but there's definitely different things of ways that people make, I don't know. What do you?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so, for me, I think the biggest thing is, especially, let's just say I'm making a personal decision, right? Not necessarily Megan needs to be involved, right? Because I think I have two different processes. Normally, my process is that, first of all, I'm very life of the party, very bubbly type of person. But when I have to make a real tough decision or a big time decision, I get it's weird. I do get introverted. Mm-hmm. And introvert is not a bad thing. It just means you direct your feelings inward, right? Rather than an extrovert that directs their everything outward. And so I get really not inclusive. You know what I'm talking about, where I'm looking inward. Mm-hmm. And one of the places, and I go to a quiet place, right? It doesn't need to actually be a physical place for me. It just needs to be quiet. Mm-hmm. And I need to let my mind kind of wander a little bit at first, and kind of really kind of wrap my hands around what the decision is and what I need to do, and kind of think of the different outcomes. Kind of like you're saying, pros, cons, right? Mm-hmm. Like I said, I kind of think of making, big decisions like chess moves. Every move I make has a real, there's going to be a reaction to that move, right? Right. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be no reaction, right? But there's something that's going to happen. But when it comes to making decisions as a team, and that's what I call Megan and I is a team. We make team decisions, right? Mm-hmm. And so we lay the thing out there, whatever it is, and we say this is what is in front of us. What are your thoughts, right? And I want to hear everything she has to say, unabated to what I'm going to say, right? And that's a big thing, guys, is actively listening to the other person in the decision-making process, not building your answer already. Like, I try to actively listen to what her thoughts are, and then I rebuttal, and then we kind of figure out, hey, what is the best decision in this process that's going to benefit us both? And then try to make it.
Yeah, I think also what you hit on too was it's hard to make big decisions alone. I mean, if you're on your own, you're on your own, and I'm responsible for myself. But when you're making those big decisions for somebody else and or family and or, it's going to affect other people or it's going to affect your future, it is somewhat nice sometimes to have somebody there that you that you have to share the responsibility of the decision making. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's hard because you don't agree. And then and then you
you are where you are.
Yeah. But sometimes it's good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I had written down here is like, when you are like, even though like I have me and Megan go through that decision-making process together, right? You still have people that you go to kind of bounce stuff off, right? Because like, especially if it's an emotional charged decision, right? Like if it's, and I feel like most big decisions there's some emotion behind it.
Oh, absolutely.
And so being able to go to somebody that has an unbiased opinion that doesn't, really have a dog in the fight or, along those lines and getting some information, right? Or maybe just hearing a different perspective. And we talked about getting advice, right? And having good sources of advice.
Yeah.
And having those good people that you could go talk to. And might not even be people. It might be, listening to something, right? Listening to a podcast, listening to whatever that can open up your mind. But, I think that's a big thing too, is having people, especially like if you're the only one making the decision, having someone you can bounce some stuff off.
Yeah, I've done that with my dad a lot because of his experience with business and in sales and relationships and, with clients, losing clients, leaving clients. And knowing when to walk away, like we've said before. But I've done a lot with him. And, sometimes, most of the time, honestly, I agree with that advice and it helps me to make the decision. Something recently, he sort of, his advice was not really aligned with what I was thinking or feeling. And it made my decision a little bit more difficult because it's usually like, oh yeah, that's great advice. I'm going to do, it kind of backs me up and it's like, you get it. You're like, yeah, someone has my back. But this one was a little difficult because he gave a different perspective and that kind of made me question things on my decision making. But I still, I moved forward and he ended up being right anyway, but, so it all worked out. But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of, there's big and small decisions, whether they're hard or not. I mean, I think, even with, I'm trying to think with doing things, getting involved in certain things with nonprofits and volunteering your time, knowing when to do that. And there's a lot of, how many decisions we made? You probably Google. I mean, we were probably making
tons
hundreds,
of decisions.
if not thousands thousands of decisions a day, like little dumb things. What should I wear? What?
Yeah. Like, what should I eat?
What should I eat?
Like, what time do I need to be here? All that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think making the hard ones quicker and trying to align with, coming up with your things in your head in a sense that are those factors that I think that will help a little bit, maybe the upside and the downside, like we were saying. But ultimately for me, it's like what holds true to me. And sometimes we worry about other people too much and we have to, that's something that that we think about too, you know. And like you said, actually it was funny, you said that there's not a right or wrong. I mean, there's probably a handful of different solutions or decisions that could be made in one of these hard, you know, there's probably a couple different things. There's not always, it's not always it is or it isn't, or yes or no, or black and white. You know, there's definitely some things also that I don't know a good example, but I'm just thinking maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like you just said, there's multiple options to every solution or every problem, right? There's multiple options to solve the issue. And, you know, this is how I look at it, just because I like to think of myself as a growth minded person, that even if I make the wrong decision, right, I can still use that as an opportunity to make a better decision down the road. And I think that's what a lot of people get really fearful of, is that they're going to make a wrong decision. You, at one point in your life, you're going to make a bad decision. Like it's just going to happen, right? Like, and so the more time, like, you know, there's I can't remember what coach said this, but one of my coaches, you know, in one of the sports I played, you learn more from a loss than you do from a victory.
Right.
You know, that loss is gonna stick with you more so than that victory. And so learning, you know, hey, taking that opportunity, even if you did make it, like even in that situation that you made a bad choice, right, quote unquote, and your dad kind of told you to do something different, probably the next time, if you're given that same opportunity, you're probably going to make a different decision, right? You're going to probably do something a little bit differently. You might not do it exactly like your dad wants you to do, but you might modify your decision a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, but look at, even when I was 16 years old, do you think I ever gave discounts or stole from an employer? You know, I mean, it was technically stealing in a sense, because I was giving discounts and I was giving these CDs away, and it was like 5, you know. Which I just was talking about that last night with a couple of friends, because we were talking about jobs or getting fired, and yeah, I mean, I learned real quick, you know, you're going to get caught most, if not every single time, you know, or you could, and there's a chance. And, you know, I think looking at, that's a whole nother well, I wouldn't say a whole nother topic, but that's another thing about, hey, you know, when you're making bad decisions, you know, are you weighing the risks and the consequences? And, you know, there's a whole open, not a can of worms, but I mean, there's a lot of bad things that could happen from making, you know, bad decisions, and it could affect a lot of people. And, you know, yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother thing. But with what I did, I'm like, yeah, I learned my lesson hard with that. I mean, I was scared at 16 years old. I had to pay it back, even though I didn't have the money. My mom didn't. I had to pay her. And they're like, oh, we're not going to call the police. I was like, the police?
Yeah.
What? You know? And they're like, well, you stole, you know, like you could go to jail. And I don't think that I would have ever, but they scared me enough to never want to do it again, obviously, and be cool for my friends. So I think now some of those things where I do make bad decisions or poor decisions, or things that just weren't the best, I kind of kick myself a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that again. And I've even, bad example, but you know, the last couple weeks, or now that things are getting nice out and people are going out, and you know, I'm having a lot of networking events and mixers, and there's just, I was doing too much. You know, I was out doing, you know, networking and doing things, and obviously you have a couple drinks, and I just felt like crap the next day, or even just with going and having 2, you know, obviously it wasn't necessarily the amount that you're drinking, but you just kind of feel like crap the next day. And I said, okay, I'm not doing that again. Or I you know, just drink water. Yeah, you know, I didn't want to feel hungover, you know, or I know I wasn't hungover, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So there's little things like that have been happening recently where I'm like, okay, now I'm good. I'm just going to stay in tonight. And, get work done, or, I don't need to, it's a bad example, but it just, I didn't feel good. And I learned, I said, hey,
yeah,
I'm going to make a better decision next time.
Yeah. I mean, like, you come, like you hinted on health, right? Making health decisions. So people don't think about it, right? Like eating properly, maybe potentially, going to the gym and stuff like that. They think of that as a small decision, but every day you do that, like, adds health back onto you, right? Losing weight, not smoking, right? It seems like a little decision right now, but down the road that pays dividends, right? And that's something like, I make a decision every day now. Like me and Megan are, doing a little challenge, a 6-week challenge to see, who can, get in better shape in the next 6 weeks. And so, but choosing to eat properly every day. Now it sucks, right? Because you see people, eating pizza and drinking beer and having a good time. And I'm over here drinking like maybe a seltzer, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Those little tiny decisions, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying too about,
Yeah. So all those, and that's a crazy thing, is that people don't think, like, we're talking about the big decisions that we make, but there's a lot of little decisions that add up to a big decision, right? They lead you to the door or the opportunity to make that big decision. And so everything that you do every day, like, and I know this just because of what Grant preaches, right? It's winning each day. It's the decisions that you make daily, the routine. I mean, that's why you gave me the 10X book, right? It's got routine, right? Doing your goals every day, selecting your targets, talking about your wins, right? Those are little decisions that you make every day that over time compound, right, to, a life change, a life-changing decision,
right. Little feats of like good decisions, like success. But I also think it could form habits, because like you said, you're making the decision to get up, go to the gym, or eat better, and every day.
At 5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock. Oh my gosh. So I was up because you couldn't sleep, but I was up at 3. But I have been wanting to get back into the gym. I've been doing some workouts at home, but I absolutely wanted to get back, and every day or every couple of days go by, and then the week goes by, and it's like, oh, next week, and that's just procrastination, being lazy. But also it is making the decision to do it. And I think once we make that decision, we start doing it, and every day doing it, becomes a habit more. So it's almost like good decisions can lead into good habits. Bad decisions can obviously lead into bad habits. But definitely.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like I said, it was, we're all going to have to make big decisions down the road. It's just life, guys. And I think today was a really good show, especially just because we're getting back into it, right? It's like riding a bike almost. It's like we kind of like hadn't done it in a while, and now we're back at it. And so we made the decision to be here today, and so did you. So we really appreciate that. So without further ado, right, because we haven't done it in 2 weeks, where is it? Oh, there it is. Boom. The millennial meme of the week. And so
millennial meme.
It's funny because I was like, where's the button? It's like I hadn't done this in a while. And so it is my turn, or we don't know whose turn it is.
We're not
it's
sure.
Just
we
somebody's.
Forgot.
We're just starting from Jump Street. So I decided to do the meme today. And it's a movie probably near and dear to Mel's heart. All women love this movie. And it's The Notebook. And it's that scene where he's like, what do you want? And it says, whenever it's time to eat. And it's like, what do you want? It's not that simple. What do you want, right? How big of a decision is that to figure out what you guys want to eat, right? It's always a big fight.
I just saw that the other day. Somebody actually posted it, and about their wife and we tagged their wife on Instagram. And I was actually going to bring that up during this podcast, but I'm glad I didn't, because it would have ruined it. But I was absolutely going to, when you said decisions on what to eat, and I was like, well, us women, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, no, okay. Well, what about this? No, I don't want that. What about this? No, but I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. Anything but this. But I don't care otherwise.
What about this? No.
It's like it always ends up coming back to Mexican food. Just suggest that, and you're good to go. But there is another moment, right, guys? I know you've missed these, and we're here to provide this entertainment for you guys. And so, without further ado, it's Mel's moment. And so, this is where Mel gets to give you guys a little bit of advice. Maybe she'll give you some advice today on making a big decision. Maybe you have a big decision to make this week or this weekend. And so Mel's going to drop some knowledge for you. So Mel, take it away.
Yeah, I think I go with your gut. I mean, I think a lot of the decisions that I've made I've gone with my gut, and my gut has been spot on and really true to me as I've gotten older. And I would say absolutely go with your gut. I would say to consider everyone around you. Like you said, if you have a family, if you have a significant other, you have friends, you have a family. I think we should all be considering those factors when like I have a business, what if anything happened to me, what would happen to my business and all my clients, so making decisions, we're never making decisions for ourselves if you think about it. So consider everybody else. Because life is very short. And unfortunately, I had a friend who was in an accident a couple weekends ago, and it's no longer with us. And it's very tragic. And there's a lot of things that make you then think about life and about the decisions that you make. And I think that it is just, life is way too short and very fragile. And we, make the decisions to stay true to you. And, we're all going to have major decisions, but I think if we do it with good intentions and a good heart, I absolutely think that, that it'll be a good outcome for that decision.
Yep. I totally agree. I love that, make those decisions with other people in mind. Go with your gut, right? They always say when you're taking a test, right? Go with your gut. Don't change your answer because usually you're right the first time. And so go with your gut. But, hopefully today, guys, you got a little bit of value out of making big decisions, how we do it, some of the big decisions that we have made. And I implore you to make a big decision this weekend. And like I always say, make some good memories with your family, make some memories with your friends. Especially now that everything's opening up, it's it's kind of nice outside. It's kind of a little dreary. It was really sunny. Now all of a sudden it's kind of overcast. But like I said, go out and have some fun, right? And make and use the opportunities that you have right now, because, like Mel said, one day you might not have those opportunities anymore. So, but anyways, guys, make sure you always check us out every Friday, 12 o'clock. We're going to be coming back next week. We don't know what we'll be talking about yet, but we'll let you know as soon as that comes up. But like I said, we appreciate everybody jumping on today. If you did like what you hear today, please make sure you share our page and all that good stuff. So, but anyways, guys, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.